Do you wish you could get virtual attendees to turn their cameras on? Is engagement the number one issue on your virtual meetings? Do you want your meeting to be the most engaging virtual meeting? Well, welcome to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. In this podcast, we'll talk to the top people around the world in virtual meetings and give you, the listener, the best ideas to host engaging virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. Now, let's welcome your host, the author of the #1 Amazon hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings, John Chen. All right, welcome to another episode of Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. What's new and exciting this morning? This morning, I woke up and on the Training Magazine Network, I got a chance to instruct. Let's see, there were over 1,800 people registered, and I didn't check the high point, but it was about 650 or 700 live. Those are really good numbers. And I got a chance to teach a new class that I've developed called 6 ways to create more engaging training. So if you want to check that out, the replay is available on Training Magazine Network. Speaking of which, if you're watching us here on any of the live streams in your live, make sure and hit that subscribe button, share, like, and comment. If you hit us here live, occasionally I will get a chance to see that and acknowledge you. You can get this podcast at engagingvirtualmeetings.online, and you can listen to this podcast on any of your 13 favorite podcast platforms. Did you know Apple Podcasts still the #1, followed closely by Spotify, #2. We hope you're considering coming to the Engaging Conference this year, the first time hybrid, both virtual and in person. We're going to have about 150 people and 3 Hall of Fame speakers I'm about to announce in this next month. You can go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/CONCon for a free ticket, or check out our VIP and the amazing in-person. You will see all of the behind the scenes of what has to happen if you want to have the most engaging hybrid conference. And so with that, let's take a look at our next guest. My next guest I met through NSA, not the security people, the National Speakers Association, which I'm the president-elect for NSA Northwest. And good news, I made stage 3 to the Certified Speaking Professional. That is one of the highest designations, or higher designations, inside of NSA. I am working through that process today or this year, and trying to see if I can actually match this process. She's an advisor and coach to the C-suite. I love this quote. She's sometimes like these C-suite people, they go 80 miles per hour in a 45-mile zone. They don't check to see if people are strapped in, all right, or interested in the strategic direction. Let's welcome the modern badass, the one and only Parissa Behnia. I'm going to get this right. I know I am. Hold on. Let's bring her up. Oh, Parissa, how are you?
I'm great, John. How are you? Congratulations. You've already had a banner day, and it's not even 11 a.m. On the West Coast. So amen. That's awesome. That's
Thank
great.
you.
No shame in that game.
I was so excited, and what I love too about the NSA, or National Speakers Association community, Parissa, is that I've been posting the journey a little bit on the members only Facebook page. People are so supportive.
Yeah.
You know, that support. I've been a member of lots of other associations. I posted stuff like that, and they're like, I don't care. Nobody responds. But this is a community that like cheers you on like no other.
I am in 100% agreement there. I joined the NSA Illinois chapter. I want to say it was middle of last year-ish, and the degree of community within the chapter, and then also the larger national organization, the willingness to help, the willingness to be in community with one another, I think is spectacular. And I'm hoping to meet a lot of folks at Thrive coming up in the first part of March, because I think it'll just enhance the community experience even more.
Well, Parissa, I don't know if you heard, right? I'm planning a not sanctioned karaoke night at Thrive. So I hope that you come and join us.
Fun.
Right? You don't have to sing, right? In fact, sometimes the more entertaining part might be sitting in the back watching all
Oh,
the
I'll
other...
be sitting in the back.
But it's meant to be social and it's meant to meet like you can hang out with other members.
100%. That's great. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. I'm gonna have to tell the folks that I'm gonna be with that that is the place to go and have some fun.
All right. Well, speaking of having some fun, why don't you do us a favor? For my friends who don't know you, take a moment to describe or tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, thank you so much for asking. Uh, who I am. It's a really good question. My name is Parissa Behnia, and I'm on a 25-year mission to be the world-renowned coach and advisor to modern badasses and those who lead badasses. These are, you shared earlier, they go 80 miles an hour in a 45-mile-an-hour zone without checking to see if people are strapped in for the ride. And the reason why I love them as much as I do is that you and I may know about the Steve Jobs of the world or the Thomas Edisons of the world, the Serena Williams of the world, any disruptor you and I have heard of. Beyonce is a disruptor. And my mission of coaching and advising these badasses is that I am working with those that we may never meet until such time I'm able to advise and coach them. They're often sidelined, they're often silenced, they're often called too much, too bold, too brash, too divisive, too dismissive, too blank. And so what I do is I help them be seen, heard, and valued for who they are, as opposed to forcing them to change, to choose, to fit into someone's uh, archetype of what acceptable looks like. I help them go from too much to exactly what we need.
Wow. So, when did the concept of modern badass become a core central piece of what you do?
Oh, so the origin story is back in my corporate life. I was always the person that was turning my job description. If it was, let's say, for example, in the shape of a square, it always wanted to turn it into a circle or maybe even a triangle. Uh, and I thought that was in service of delivering results to the business. And it technically was. What I wasn't doing at the time was checking the temperature of the room for the level of availability or willingness to let me do all the things that I was contemplating. And so the alleged definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. And so fast forward to today, I know it's not just me, where there are these entrepreneurs, these disruptors, these people who are change agents who really are in service of something great. And yet sometimes their passion, their ideas go over like a lead balloon. How do we, and it's painful to watch, and because it's my own story, I have a particular empathy and understanding for and with these people that maybe other people out there may not have as much of. And so I love them. I see their humanity. I see their complexity. I see how hard it can sometimes be to not be understood. And I want to help them change that narrative.
I love that. I think you remind me of my coach. So my coach, I'm going to give a shout out to Matt Buchler, known as the Change Man. Helped
Nice,
me write my business plan years ago in Huntington Beach, and he
nice.
used to work at a top aeronautic space company. In one of his reviews, the manager said, "We love your results. We just wish you would leave a few less dead bodies in the
I
past."
have heard something similar. I've heard
It's
something similar. Uh, uh, One of the most painful days of my life, in my corporate life, I was in my late 20s working in New York, and I was walking into the office like I owned it. And it's a story I tell in my book. And I think my director is about to like crown me with like a most awesome employee ever. And instead, uh, what my leader tells me is that I'm the hardest person they've ever had to manage. And that is for someone who I had never been to the principal's office in elementary school, for someone who was so used to being a high performer, so who's just, I just performed. That's just what I did.
right.
And to
Yeah.
hear that, that was I was soul crushing. I'm not going to lie to you. It was hurtful to hear. And it was something, again, definition of insanity. It was something that I had heard continuously, even after that, that I was difficult to manage until such time I said, huh, how do I change the narrative? What can I choose for me for the rest of my life?
Speaking of rest of my life, I want to give a shout out to Sarah Shu, who's watching us on Facebook Live. Welcome, Sarah. Hey, look, I found a crown. Hold on a second. There, I
Oh,
found a crown. Right. You know,
cool.
and I think one of those pieces too that helps you remember this story was that one, you're on the high point, and then you get blindsided by this low point.
Yeah.
The second thing that I kind of want to share and see if you have experience with, I've done a lot of work in doing team building for hypos or high performers, and
Mhm.
they say that one of the biggest challenges for high performers, I was one too while I was at Microsoft, high performers often don't get great feedback.
Right.
They just get a lot of kudos. Oh, you're doing a great job. Here's some more work, right? Instead of, this manager could have given you this feedback, I think a lot earlier is probably your desire, and maybe in a better way. Uh, and yeah, and so a lot of high performers don't get feedback. All they get is compliments because sometimes managers they give all the feedback to the people who are in trouble, and you're not one of those. So I don't know if you have experience with that and any advice about that.
Yeah, it's a lovely question. Thank you so much for asking it. Um, you know, the what I noted in that story that I just shared of, being the hardest person ever to manage, at the time it was devastating, but now hindsight being 2020, I realized a couple of things. One is I didn't know how to ask for help, and my leader wasn't prepared, and this is not a dig on them, that my leader wasn't trained. Someone didn't coach my leader to know how to coach me, right? So I have empathy for the old me, and I also have empathy for the leader I had. And I think there would be such value, going back to your question, there would be such value if we spent more time showing leaders how to be a coach. That is radically different from managing, and it's radically different from leading, right? Managers worry about doing things right, leaders worry about doing the right things. Coaches help people get out of their own way in service of whatever that thing is, whether they're managing or wherever it is that they're leading. I wish leaders had access to coaching so that they would feel confident in giving that fraught with difficulty feedback. And wouldn't that be great if we made that more available? And wouldn't it be great if leaders were a little bit more curious about how they can lean into coaching as opposed to lean into leading by example and not coaching?
That's interesting on the coaching piece too. It reminds me of one of my good friends was like one of the top customer service people at the Seattle Sonics and then later the Thunder because they got bought.
Mm.
And his whole theory was around making people 1% better, right? He kind of got to use a sports metaphor because it's a basketball team. But his whole key was that if everyone on the customer service side, by the way, if you didn't know, it probably takes about an average of 400 volunteers to run an NBA game. These are like people you don't pay, but they want to be there. Yeah, and so you don't have any really direct control over them. Yet, he coached them and said, "What's one thing that you can do, or what's one something you could do that would make the customer experience 1% better?" And that's how he earned the gold star from Commissioner Stern at the time. He was the commissioner for the NBA, and so why don't we get that kind of coaching education along the way? I don't know if there's any leadership class that specifically has that. Does there?
Uh, I mean, it certainly might be out there. I don't have expansive knowledge of everything. And to the important question you're asking is, wouldn't it be great if it was available to them, or even
Yeah.
if it wasn't formally available? What you just offered as an example is we're not asking people to be master coaches overnight. We're asking them to consider or contemplate what 1% better might look like.
Mm.
Think about toddlers. Toddlers don't run sprints. They toddle and then they fall on their bum and then they toddle again, they fall on their bum. Sometimes they laugh, sometimes they don't. They're not they're not Olympic sprinters from the jump, right? So why don't we have that same level of care and understanding for leaders is, you know, what's one small thing that you can contemplate this week? And it goes back to James Clear's Atomic Habits book. So that if you tried incremental improvements, well, at the end of the year, it's a ginormous improvement. But let's focus on one consumable thing that we can do at a time. You can't boil the ocean, you can boil a tea kettle that has water in it.
Beautiful. Beautiful metaphor pieces there too. And I put the good Atomic Habits is your book reference, so people go check out that book. And of course, Parissa's book, their Modern Badass, I'm sure available on Amazon and all your favorite places.
Absolutely.
Parissa, so tell me what happened in the last 3 to 4 years. So how did managing virtually, what stories did you hear or see? What trends did you hear or see in terms of managing virtually? Because a topic is remote teams and remote teamwork. I see it in a lot of places. So I'm curious to see what was your viewpoint on it.
Oh, so I have a number of clients where some of them were in the office and then some of them were in remote locations. And so
Mhm.
how do you the trick becomes how do you create a level of engagement and alignment with the work that you're doing? Being a solopreneur, a lot of my work is on Zoom. I'm part of a coaching community where during
Mm.
shutdown and even post shutdown, a lot of what we do together is over Zoom. And so how do we find ways to connect powerfully with the people on the other side of the screen? And so one of the things that I adopted for me was, sure, I might be in a team of people. I might be in a work group of people. And I also take that I also make the commitment that I will connect one-on-one with people, even if it's only over Zoom. They're in another part of the country or what have you. How do I find ways to build real relationship or be in relationship with people outside of what might be happening in the larger circle? So that's one thing that I've been really conscious of. And then the other thing that I'm really conscious of is uh not every meeting has to be an hour long just because it's on the calendar. If you're done, right? If we're complete, if we feel like we heard each other, that we're clear on what the follow-ups are, why torture each other and feeling like we need to sit there and look at the screen where we could be doing something else? So trusting each other to know if we're good, then we're complete. In real life, if you and I were meeting and it was a 30-minute meeting and we were done in 15 minutes, we wouldn't stare at each other for 15 minutes. We'd be like, this was awesome, great. I'll, see you next time or whatever it is. So those are some of the things that I've noticed. I don't know what's been your experience or what you really enjoy these days.
Well, there were definitely, I mean, virtual teamwork was tough, especially for those who had not been meeting virtually beforehand, because you basically you completely changed the landscape. And then it's kind of like your coaching thing that did too. Nobody was, there were a good majority of people not prepared. Nobody gave them training, right? You had to get training like on the fly. Therefore, you don't have
Right.
any practice, you don't have any skill mastery. And so, like, one of my favorite stories is somebody was a library and they had a virtual help desk. So I called into their virtual help desk and I basically kind of secret shopped it because I wanted to know what the experience was like. I was just curious because like I was sitting around, it's COVID, and I had nothing else to do. So she was talking about this. So I popped into that and I gave them some feedback and it was not good. Let me just start with right? No cameras, right? There's no desk. They were awkward. I came in, they didn't know I was there for a good couple of minutes. And and so I gave them some tips with that. And one of the tips too, she asked for like, how can I help with the team meeting? Because she also said some of the team meetings were like pulling teeth. It's one person talking for 60 minutes, right? That's
Mm,
number one. Don't do that. Right? If it's like that, why don't you just send a video to everyone, right? Let them
right.
watch that. But it's not, you should really prioritize the things that you can only do live, like collaborate, have a discussion, make a decision, right? The things that you, again, you're looking to involve everyone, not a one-way communication.
Right.
And and one of the easiest things, right? It's my number one tip, right? I have a six-step engage method, and the first letter is E, which is if you want engagement, engage. I know I'm a genius, right? so
Go figure.
so the key, I know, but nobody was doing it, so that's why it still
Right.
sounds like genius. And so the tip is engage and interact with every attendee before the end of the meeting.
Hmm.
So what they did is she asked permission of the team leader. She wasn't in charge of the team. And she says, can we just do something? We're just going to take like 6 minutes at the beginning. Can we just have every team member check in with how they're doing? And that was really smart during COVID. Like checking in at that key time, everybody was handling it in a different way.
Yeah.
So it was useful to find out, like, are you okay? Do you feel good? Are you nervous? Are you afraid? Or, all of
Yeah.
us were all having all those emotions. And so anyway, she said that 6 minutes of getting everyone to talk once, even if they didn't have cameras on. She said the rest of the 54-minute meeting was so productive. And she led on to say they got more work done as a team in that day than any other day since March of, 2020.
Oh, I believe it. And it speaks to the emotional connection or the sensing everyone's energy or where they might be, so that I would know how to engage with you or whomever else so if someone's feeling a little tender or if someone's feeling a little sassy or whatever it is, then I'm like, all right, I am prepared, knowing that where this person is today. And I think that really speaks to how wonderfully everyone was able to work together to take time to go through that check-in. I'm a big fan of check-ins of, how's it going? What's present for you? And then another thing I love to do in check-ins and some of the groups I run is I'll say, I'll ask, what are we celebrating? And it can
Yeah.
be as simple as, I remember to make my bed every day this week. Like, I'm not looking for like a bold-faced celebration. It's
Yeah.
let us elevate that mood. Let us say this really awesome thing happened and I want to share it with you in this virtual room. And there's just something about the energy level that goes up when everyone shares a celebration and everyone can be happy for one another.
Here's a new one for you if you haven't tried it. I was at Learnapalooza, which is one of our training events. We're having the after hours, so there's like 40 trainers in my backyard hanging out after
Nice.
the conference. And we there was a guy next to me, and we were like, "Oh, we should all introduce ourselves at some point." Somebody said, and so I didn't want to own it. I'm like, "It's already my house." I'm like, "You choose, right? What you lead this thing." And so he comes around and he goes, "Everyone share a boring fact about yourself." And it sounds simple, right? What was great about it, the high point was that somebody shared, he goes, "Here's my boring fact is I own a bidet." And the whole conversation erupted into team bidet and team I don't have a bidet or I don't want a bidet. And it was such a controversial topic, but it was so really cool to see such a simple question create such connection amongst, 20, 30 people who did not know each other.
I love that. And and no one anticipated that someone was going to offer up that they own a bit. That's what makes it so good.
And that's right. It was totally, yeah. And that was they choose their boring facts. It just shows to for us as people, even the boring stuff is the good stuff.
Oh, so juicy. Yeah, I mean it's the human condition, right? The human condition is never boring.
All right. Well, speaking of never boring, what has to happen for you, Parissa, to like have a virtual meeting for you to be engaged, whether you're leading it or you're attending it? Also if you have any top stories of cool stuff that happened over the last unexpected things maybe that happened over the last 3 years, but what has to happen for you to be engaged on virtual like this?
It's such a good question. I'm so glad we're talking about this. I have noticed for me, so this is a focus group of one. There is a danger of having too many breakout sessions and also a danger of having too little.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of balance because it becomes a little disruptive. It's like, all right, we're going to be together and then, oh, talk about it and break out for a couple minutes. You come back and there isn't enough time for people to connect or engage. So it's not so much less is more. It's the really good ones. It's I am going to use this breakout time intentionally. Like there is a method to this madness, and then we can weave in conversations later. So that's worked out really well. And then some online conferences I've been in, I was part of the same kind of breakout groups. We were in the larger room for a while, and then we'd have our own session to reflect on whatever was happening in the larger room. I thought that was really successftive. And
Mm.
then a fun thing that my coach did for his community, this was hilarious. We did um, a scavenger hunt over Zoom.
Yep.
And it was, find whatever, send pictures and then it was part of the challenge was, sing a song from your favorite Disney movie and upload it. And like as crazy, these crazy questions with a limited amount of time. And then we were split up into teams. The fact that everyone was still playing at the end of the time told us, well, we were either insane or it was a lot of fun. And then also B, it's the joy of creativity. You can be creative in person, and then you can also be creative over Zoom. It is a matter of choice. How committed and intentional is the person running the program to have a high energy, creative, immersive experience without the attendees ever having to leave their office, their home, or wherever it is they were connecting from. So much fun, so good. There were so many great experiences that way.
Chris, I don't know if you know this, right? That's my career is that before the pandemic, I had 25 years of doing high-tech scavenger hunts based on geocaching. So I'm with you on all that. You know what I love too, you said, how committed is the person running the program? For all of you who are trainers and facilitators and leaders, when you lead these parts, I just got this question this morning in Training Magazine. It's like, how you show up matters. And
Right.
here's the reason why. If you show up tired, right, your class falls asleep. If you show up depressed, right, your group is not happy. You know, if you show up angry, they fight, and if you show up happy, right, they can come up with energy. And so I tell facilitators and trainers and speakers all the time, probably the number one thing you need to do before you get on that stage is check your own state. And the reason why it's not, and sometimes it's not for you, it's for them. And I really love that you said, how committed is that? Because this morning I had somebody and they were saying, oh, I run a mandatory training and it sucks. And I go like, okay, I'm with you. It's mandatory. He says people are like this, right? This is this is the body language he showed me, and but I think his attitude too a little bit was it was like I can't do anything, and I shared a story that I got from Rick Altman at the presentation summit. Somebody came out with a jelly donut and he's training like manual workers who have to lift really heavy stuff. And he takes the jelly donut, right? And he shows like how he puts two metal teeth and saying how the jelly donut is kind of like a shock absorber, right? And then he comes out there and he smashes the two pieces together and jelly comes squirting out of the donut and he goes, that's what happens when the it gets compressed. He was talking about your spine. And so he's trying to tell these people like why you need to lift correctly, why you need to use your legs, right? Instead of
Effective.
like bending over. And so he got these people in this mandatory training because I have to take it because it's safety related, and they were all invested in this jelly donut. And then the best part about it, after he smashes it, he comes out and takes a bite out of it. And
That's awesome.
everybody was entranced with this training. And so that's I shared this story with them and let them know that even if you have boring, terrible, mandatory training, it's on you as a trainer. Like the fish market showed you can take the most mundane task of selling fish and make it fun, exciting to the point that people travel around the world to come see you.
Oh, 100%. So in the middle of September, let's say I exceeded the advisable speed limit on the highway. Uh, it was excessive. And of course, a nice officer stopped me and he reminded me that traffic school was an option. So I took traffic school because I didn't want the points, and
Right?
I chose the comedy traffic school. Now,
I've done
whether
this.
or not it was actually funny, right? It's a completely different thing. But it points to, if I have to do it, if I am committed to this, I'm paying for traffic school and I have to submit the paperwork, how can I fulfill this and feel like I'm entertained at the same time? I will give A for effort for the traffic school people on their scripting. They wanted to make it funny. It was somewhat amusing. And it's available. I mean, this idea of the jelly donut, that's brilliant. That's absolutely, that is available to all of us. We are at choice. So I love this checking in,
Mm.
and it's more about the audience and not so much for you. That's brilliant.
What's your coaching community, if I can ask?
So I'm part of Rich Litvin's 4PC coaching community. Rich Litvin wrote a book with Steve Chandler many moons ago called The Prosperous Coach. And he does a number of larger events during the course of the year. And then he also has a smaller coaching community that he calls 4PC. So I've met friends that I'll have for the rest of my life as a function of being in that community. It's been wonderful.
Well, it sounds like community is important to you too. Again, you
Yeah,
told
yeah.
me too that you're at a specific NSA chapter because you feel like you're home. And I don't know, have you
Mhm.
ever heard of a book called Belong by Radha Agrawal?
No, I'll have to pick that up. Thank you for that tip.
So Belong is well. Here's the fun part. She actually created a company called Daybreaker, and she loved the nightclub dancing, but she didn't like the drugs and the alcohol. So she actually created morning dance parties.
Nice.
And so you get there like 6 a.m. and then you do yoga to stretch, and then they have this big dance party, and you take a shower and you go to work. And it's really cool. And they did some of the most creative Zoom webinars I have ever seen in my entire life, which is why I'm a fan. And she
Nice.
talks about in the book her system of creating community, about
Nice.
that feeling of belonging. And by the way, a DEI expert, I think Lois Creamer actually wrote about this, said that belonging is going to be one of the keywords this year. So I just want to ask, what has to happen in a community for you to feel like you belong?
Uh, that is such a good question. For me to feel like I belong is I don't feel like I have to blend. What happens in a lot of communities is that there is, and it's always unspoken and unwritten, yet you walk in and energetically it feels like you have to be like a Stepford wife. So if there's a way where I can continue to be me, continue to be this badass, I'm a contrarian. I'm going to be a contrarian for the rest of my life. I'm always going to be a courageous truth teller. What are the places that I can belong, that there will be people like me, there will be people not like me, there will be a variety of other people, and there's a way that we can connect powerfully with each other and see each other without feeling like we have to convince each other to change to suit wherever it is that we might be feeling precious.
I think that's really key because I belonged to another community of business owners at one time, and there was something, even though there's like those are I mean, we're business owners. Those people are in a different category, and they join together because they're in a different category.
Right.
But I didn't even feel like I belonged there. Like I ended up having an event where I chose to not be part of that group, and I thought that was weird to be in a group that was kind of designed of people who are definitely out there. Business owners are out there, right? That's and I didn't feel like I belong. I
Yeah,
didn't,
it's on paper, it should make sense. When you walk into the room energetically,
yeah,
it
yeah.
it doesn't make sense. And that's, I mean, that becomes a big conversation I have with my coaching clients, my advisory clients, is it's all well and good that you might actually be the smartest person in the room or the most successful or the most decorated or whatever. energetically what's present for you. Do you feel antsy? Are you getting impatient? Does it feel like your airways are getting constricted? Those are signs that your body is telling you that while they may be objectively lovely human beings, they are not your people. And it's okay to say, no, thank you. I will go elsewhere. So our bodies know even when our minds won't allow us that
Mm.
knowing of what rooms are for us and what rooms are not for us.
That's an amazing piece to teach people to do that body check and actually listen. I think people start to get it, but
Yeah,
then,
it
we
actually
spend
is.
most of our time learning half of our life how to ignore that, and so we got to spend the other half of our life learning how to listen to all that, right? Even if it's uncomfortable or painful, or so forth and so on. Well, let's take our eyes to the future. So you're a contrarian, which means I think you're also kind of a futurist. You like to sometimes look down the road. What do you think the future of virtual and hybrid is going forward? We just had this lifetime event. I
Yeah.
keep talking about it too. Like the youth of this year, that's going to be one of their defining events. For
Hmm.
instance, virtual school and all these other things. So I'm just curious, where can this go into the future? Maybe 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 or 10 years down the road.
5 or 10 years down the road, uh, I think we're going to get to a point where it will feel seamless. Right now, it feels clunky. So
Mm.
there's conversations right now about return to office, not return to office, 100% remote, 50% remote. These all feel like silos. Where we're going to get is it will feel like, I don't want to call it a nothing burger, but that's the word that's coming to mind right now. Like we will that it will flow. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. We will be in flow, that there will be less resistance to meeting in person because we will have found ways to connect so powerfully online that we feel an urge to connect in person with people, and that it will be just as good uh in person, if not better, as a function of connecting so powerfully online. I do, in as much as I think virtual is great, I am actually also a proponent of being in community live with people. There is something important to that. To your point, you invited me earlier to the karaoke at the Thrive conference.
Right.
I mean, that would only be available and possible because we've all decided to attend Thrive in person, and then I will absolutely be in the back of the room watching the performances. That there's gold in there. There
Mm.
will be there will be texture within there that will allow us to go back to make our virtual meetings even more powerful because we chose to be in community with each other in person. So it'll end up being like a virtuous circle. I don't know if that makes sense though.
Yeah, I love that you say flow. And I think, all of us have established some form of flow,
Yeah.
right? Like there's a routine now to getting onto virtual, because I really feel like I have a flow for me personally. But I'm the contrarian too. I've like full on embraced virtual. But I think that flow will feel either more natural and other things will happen that might make it feel closer and closer. But here's the reason why it will never, remove in person. Is because what I tell people is called my theory of bandwidth, right? So down
Mhm.
here is text, right? Or text messaging is like very low
Mhm.
bandwidth, doesn't take a lot. Audio, right? Then video, then audio, video, together. And, I got a chance to see the proto. Have you seen the proto yet?
No, I've not.
This is something that teleports you. So basically, they built a three-dimensional box, and Howie Mandel is one of the investors. So you can get any 4K camera, like your iPhone in a hotel room, but if you
Uh-huh.
put this box on stage, it will put a very realistic three-dimensional hologram of you on
That's
stage.
awesome.
And so those are the kind of things like I think you're saying flow, which is like you can still have a video of the audience, so you can still like mess with people and see their reaction, and the audience gets a three-dimensional representation of you, and I think that's this flow part that would feel less clunky than you being on a big screen.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
feel that. I feel that. And uh it's it'll get to the point where we become like hybrid natives. We're not a hybrid native yet, right? I mean, kids are digital natives. I'm definitely not a digital native. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I'm definitely not a digital native. But kids are digital natives, and then they'll get to a point where there are hybrid natives out there that it's not a big deal. Hey, I want to hang out in person. That's cool.
Yeah.
Or I'm done socialing now. It's time for me to go back into my cave.
And log off. Yeah. You know, what's amazing, the youth have already shown the way. As early as 2018, I got a chance to work at DECA, the high school program.
Yeah.
And what happened is they call curfew at 10 o'clock. But so what happens? What happens is the kids all go back to their hotel rooms and then they all log on into their friends and they hang out for another 1 or 2 hours. And so, that generation is already used to hybrid and being connected in this completely different way. And so, yeah, so with that, Parissa, let's just give you this. If people could only remember one thing from this interview, what's the one thing you want them to remember?
Oh, you can be called just right if you were previously called too much, too bold, too brash, too difficult.
Well, I feel like, was it Goldilocks, right? Parissa, you're just right.
I am just right.
You're just right for this interview. And I can't wait to hopefully hang out with you at Thrive.
Likewise.
And again, thank you so much for your time. I did put, Parissa put a LinkedIn inside of there, and check out her book, Modern Badass, a book I believe everyone should check out. And I can't wait to also get my copy, Parissa.
I'll send you one.
Oh, yay. All right. Or bring it to Thrive and I'll trade you books.
Absolutely. Love it. Deal.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today, Parissa.
Thank you. This was amazing.
All right, this is John Chen with Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. We've been talking to Parissa Behnia, I'm going to get it right here, and great messages. And the number one, though, if you really listen to this message, right, you're just right. And if you don't feel just right now, you're probably in the wrong place. So go search out. You might fail, but eventually you'll find the place that you're just right. Meanwhile, again, if you're watching us here, make sure and subscribe, share, like, and comment. You can get this podcast at engagingvirtualmeetings.online. We release new episodes every Wednesday. I hope that you come join me at the Engaging Conference, October 1st through 3rd this year, engagingvirtualmeetings.com/con, going hybrid for the first time this year. And let me tell you, we have some of the coolest speakers and the coolest tech you want to see this conference, whether it's behind the scenes with us in Seattle or virtually online. And if you want to be like Parissa and be the next guest here, go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, select interview, and you could be the next guest here on Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. I feel so much in the right place right now. I am so glad that I feel just right. Thank you, and we'll see you next time here on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. This is John Chen, the author of the Amazon #1 hot new release, Engaging Virtual Meetings. I personally want to say thank you for listening to the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast. It is my passion to help you eliminate bad virtual meetings. Make sure that you click subscribe so that you can get the latest episode of the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast with all of the latest ideas. Hey, I want to meet you. If you want to talk about a virtual meeting challenge, or if you want to be the next guest on the Engaging Virtual Meetings podcast, just go to engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet. That's engagingvirtualmeetings.com/meet, MEET, and find your best time to meet up. Thank you, and I look forward to engaging with you online.